Nobody on television is saying this clearly enough, so I will say it plainly, the way you would say it to a friend sitting across from you at the kitchen table. 3 weeks ago, the world changed. Not in a Hollywood, dramatic, end of days kind of way. The change showed up in your grocery bill, in your gas tank, in your retirement account, in the value of every dollar you have worked a lifetime to save. And if nobody has walked you through what is actually happening right now, what it means for your money, and what you can do about it, that is exactly what we are doing today. My name is Professor Jinang. Geopolitics is what I teach. And today's lesson is the one that matters most, because this time, the classroom is your savings, your household, your future. So let's get into it. On February 28th, 2026, the United States and Israel launched coordinated airstrikes against Iran, opening with what military planners call a decapitation strike, targeting Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Within days, Iran fired back, and the Middle East went from tense and fragile to a war zone. Now you might be thinking, wars happen, why should this one touch my retirement account? Here is the answer, and it comes down to one small body of water. The Strait of Hormuz sits 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, narrow enough that people can swim across it. Before this war started, roughly 20 million barrels of oil moved through that strait every single day. Japan gets 75% of its oil through there. India pulls 60% through it. China depends on it for 40%. The entire energy backbone of the modern world passes through a passage barely wider than some American counties, and Iran has now effectively closed it. The moment that strait closed, a global economic countdown began. Factories cannot run, homes cannot be heated, airplanes cannot fly, and hospitals cannot operate without energy. And when energy becomes scarce, everything becomes more expensive. That is not drama. That is just how supply and demand works. Before the war, Brent crude oil sat at around $65 a barrel, which is a reasonable number for a world that, while imperfect, was still functioning. 3 weeks after the first airstrikes, Brent crude had surged past $100, a 40% jump in less than a month. The Council on Foreign Relations ran the numbers and concluded that a prolonged closure of the strait could push oil toward $170 a barrel. And Goldman Sachs warned it could hit $150 by the end of March if the strait stays closed. What that number means at your gas station is this. Nationwide, unleaded gas has already climbed from $2.98 a gallon on February 26th to $3.93, a 24% surge in 3 weeks. And here's what that surge actually touches. Every delivery truck costs more to operate, every airplane burns more expensive fuel, every product shipped from a warehouse to your grocery store carries a higher freight cost, and none of that extra expense disappears. It gets passed straight to you. Then Qatar Energy entered the picture. On March 2nd, the company suspended LNG production after an Iranian drone attack, and Qatar supplies 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas. That supply went from flowing to stopped almost overnight, and European gas benchmarks responded by nearly doubling. The IMF's managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, warned on March 9th that a prolonged war poses an inflationary risk to the entire global economy. This is not commentary from fringe analysts. These are the people who manage the world's financial architecture, and they are worried. There is a word that economists have started whispering. They are not shouting it yet, but the whisper is getting louder. That word is stagflation. Older Americans watching this already know what that word tastes like. The gas lines of the 1970s, the grocery sticker shock, the interest rates that made buying a home feel unreachable. Stagflation is that specific, brutal combination of high inflation and a slowing economy arriving at the same time, and it is the hardest scenario for policymakers to manage because there is no clean solution. Raise interest rates to fight inflation, and you crush economic growth. Lower rates to help the economy, and you let inflation run. Every option carries a cost. The 1979 to 1980 period which also involved Iran and an oil shock, produced treasury yields that surged to around 15%, oil prices that more than doubled and stayed elevated for years, and gold that shot to nearly $800 to $850 an ounce. The S&P 500 delivered weak real returns as stagflation and recession battered American equities for years.